My name is Sarah Morgan, and I just turned 32. 3 years ago, on my 29th birthday, my family kicked me out of our home without warning. After struggling to rebuild my life, I finally purchased my own house through hard work and determination. Now, those same family members who abandoned me are showing up at my door claiming my home should be considered a family asset. Before I tell you how my own family tried to steal the home I worked so hard for, let me know where you're watching from. And hit that subscribe button if family betrayal stories make your blood boil too. Growing up in the Morgan family household in suburban Chicago, I was always aware of my place in the family hierarchy. As the youngest child and only daughter, I often felt like an afterthought compared to my older brother Patrick, who was 3 years my senior, and seemed to be the center of my parents' universe. Our family of four lived in a spacious two-story home in a quiet neighborhood about 30 minutes outside of downtown Chicago. My father James worked as a financial advisor at a respected firm, while my mother Diane managed a real estate office. From the outside, we appeared to be the perfect middle-class American family, with solid careers, a beautiful home, and well-behaved children. Behind our polished exterior, though, the family dynamics were far from perfect. My parents had always made it clear that they had certain expectations for their children, particularly when it came to finances and responsibility. Money management is the cornerstone of success, my father would lecture at the dinner table. Financial security is what separates the successful from the struggling. These lessons came with practical applications. From an early age, Patrick and I were taught to save portions of our allowances and birthday money. But there was also an unspoken expectation that Patrick would be the one to carry on the family legacy of financial success. "Your brother has a natural head for business," my mother would say whenever Patrick showed the slightest interest in stocks or investments. Meanwhile, my own aptitude for numbers and strategic thinking often went unnoticed or was attributed to "your father helping you." The imbalance between how my parents treated Patrick and me became more pronounced as we grew older. When it came time for college, my parents contributed significantly to Patrick's education at a prestigious business school. For my education in marketing and communications, I was encouraged to take responsibility by working part-time and taking out student loans. "It will teach you the value of your education," my father explained when I questioned why Patrick had received more financial support. "Besides, Patrick is studying finance. That's a practical degree with guaranteed returns." Perhaps the most telling example of our family's uneven dynamics was the family fund tradition my parents established when Patrick and I started working. Each member of the household was expected to contribute a percentage of their income to this shared account, which was supposedly for emergencies, home improvements, and occasional family vacations. In reality, I noticed that withdrawals from this fund tended to favor Patrick's interests and needs. When he wanted to invest in expensive software for a project, the family fund covered it. When I needed a new laptop for my graphic design work, I was told to save up separately because it was a personal expense. Despite these discrepancies, I remained loyal to my family. After graduating from college with nearly $40,000 in student loan debt, I secured an entry-level position at a digital marketing agency in Chicago. The salary wasn't impressive, but it offered growth potential and aligned with my career goals. Instead of finding my own apartment right away, I made the decision to continue living at home. Partially, this was to save money in the expensive Chicago housing market, but it was also because my parents had emphasized the importance of family loyalty. "The Morgan family sticks together," they would say. "We build our wealth as a unit." So I dutifully contributed 30% of my monthly income to the family fund, on top of helping with utilities and groceries. Patrick, who had landed a job at a finance startup, contributed as well, though I suspected his percentage was lower despite his higher salary. Our family home, the center of this financial ecosystem, had been purchased 25 years earlier before Patrick was born. It was a substantial property that had appreciated significantly over the decades. My parents frequently referred to it as the family legacy asset and made it clear that it would eventually belong to both Patrick and me. "This house represents the Morgan family's success," my father would say while giving tours to visitors. "One day it will provide security for both our children." I believe this narrative completely. Even as I approached my late 20s and watched friends purchase their own homes, I continued to live with my parents, saving what I could while contributing to the family fund. I told myself it was the smart financial move, especially as I worked my way up from junior copywriter to content strategist, then to marketing manager at my company. By the time I turned 29, I had managed to pay off most of my student loans, built a decent personal savings account, and established a solid professional reputation. I was proud of what I had accomplished, despite starting with less support than many of my peers. And I was proud of my contributions to the family, both financially and emotionally, as I helped maintain the household and supported my parents as they began thinking about retirement. Living at home as an adult wasn't always easy. I had to navigate issues of privacy and dependence, and sometimes felt infantilized by my parents' house rules. But I genuinely believed we were working toward a shared future, where everyone's contributions would be recognized and rewarded. I had no reason to suspect that my position in the family was as precarious as it turned out to be. The Morgan family home itself was a point of pride. A 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom colonial with a finished basement and a beautifully landscaped yard. It had been the backdrop for countless family gatherings, holiday celebrations, and milestone moments. My bedroom, though, the smallest in the house, had been my sanctuary since childhood. I had repainted and redecorated it several times over the years, most recently converting it into a combined bedroom and home office to accommodate my occasional remote work days. In many ways, I viewed my continued presence in the family home as an investment in my future. I was building equity in the family legacy while preparing for the next phase of my life. Little did I know that my family had a very different perspective on my place in their plans. My 29th birthday started like any other workday. I woke up early, got ready, and commuted to my office downtown. The difference was the spring in my step and the excitement bubbling inside me. Not only was it my birthday, but I had just been informed the previous afternoon that I was receiving a significant promotion to senior marketing manager, along with a substantial salary increase. My plan was to share this news with my family over the birthday dinner my mother had promised to prepare. I had even splurged on a bottle of expensive champagne to celebrate both occasions. Throughout the day, I received text messages from friends wishing me a happy birthday and a beautiful flower arrangement from my team at work congratulating me on my promotion. Everything seemed to be falling into place. When I arrived home that evening, I was surprised to find an unfamiliar car in the driveway. Walking through the front door, I heard laughter coming from the kitchen. I followed the sound and found my parents and Patrick sitting at the table with a young woman I had never met before. "There she is," my mother exclaimed, though I immediately noticed there were no birthday decorations, no cake, and the dining room table was not set for a special meal. "Sarah, come meet Jessica." Jessica, as it turned out, was Patrick's new girlfriend. She was beautiful and polished with the confident demeanor of someone who knew her value. Patrick had his arm draped possessively around her shoulders as he introduced us. "Jessica and I have been dating for a few months," he explained. "She works at the same investment firm as Dad's friend Robert." "Nice to meet you," I said, trying to hide my disappointment that my birthday dinner seemed to have been forgotten. Today is actually my birthday, and I also got some great news at work that I was hoping to share with everyone. "Oh, we know it's your birthday, honey," my mother said, patting my hand distractedly. "But we have some important family business to discuss first. We can do cake afterward." My father cleared his throat and gestured for everyone to take a seat at the kitchen table. "Since everyone is here, this is a good time for our family meeting." Family meetings in our household were usually reserved for major announcements or decisions, and I felt a twinge of unease as I took my seat, still holding my unopened champagne bottle. "Patrick and Jessica have decided to take their relationship to the next level." My father began looking pleased. "Jessica will be moving in with us next month." "That's nice," I said, though I wondered why this required a formal family meeting. Our house was large enough to accommodate another person, and while it seemed a bit old-fashioned for my parents to allow Patrick's girlfriend to move in, it wasn't entirely surprising given their preference for Patrick. "There is more," my mother continued, exchanging glances with my father. "With Jessica moving in, we need to make some adjustments to the household arrangements." My father leaned forward, folding his hands on the table. Sarah, we think it's time for you to find your own place. You have 30 days to make arrangements and move out. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked from one family member to another, waiting for someone to laugh and reveal it was some kind of bizarre birthday joke. But all I saw were serious expressions. You're asking me to move out today on my birthday. My voice sounded small and distant to my own ears. It's nothing personal, Patrick interjected. Jessica and I need our own space, and Mom and Dad want to convert your room into a proper home office since Dad is thinking about consulting from home part-time. But I've been living here and contributing to the household expenses for years, I protested, finally finding my voice. I've put thousands of dollars into the family fund. This is supposed to be my home too. My mother shook her head. You've been paying what amounts to very reasonable rent, Sarah. Frankly, you've been getting a good deal compared to what you would pay for an apartment in the city. Rent, I echoed in disbelief. You never called it rent before. You always said it was contributions to our shared family assets, that this house is part of all our futures. My father frowned. Don't be difficult about this, Sarah. You're almost 30 years old. It's time you stood on your own 2 feet instead of depending on your family for housing. I'm not depending on anyone, I shot back, feeling angry tears forming. I've been contributing financially to this household since I was 16. I've been putting a third of my income into the family fund for years, while paying for groceries and utilities on top of that. Patrick rolled his eyes. Come on, sis, don't make this a bigger deal than it is. Jessica and I have plans for the future, and we need the space. I'm going to use your room as an office for my new side business venture. Jessica, who had been silent throughout this exchange, gave me what I suppose she thought was a sympathetic smile. Change can be hard, but sometimes it's for the best. I'm sure you'll find a cute place of your own. I turned back to my parents, still hoping to find some recognition of the unfairness of the situation. What about all the money I've contributed to the family fund over the years? If that wasn't building equity in this home, what was it for? My father's expression hardened. That fund is for the benefit of the entire family, not just you. It's covered vacations we've all enjoyed, renovations to the home we've all used, and emergency expenses that have affected all of us. But now you're telling me I have no claim to any of it, that I've just been a tenant this whole time. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're being selfish, Sarah, my mother said with a disapproving frown. This isn't just about you. Patrick needs to establish himself and build his future. His business plans could benefit all of us in the long run. And what about my future? I asked, my voice shaking. Today, I got promoted to senior marketing manager. I brought champagne to celebrate with my family on my birthday. Instead, you're kicking me out of my home without any warning. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. No one congratulated me on my promotion. No one acknowledged that it was my birthday. Instead, my father stood up, signaling that the discussion was over. 30 days, Sarah. That should be plenty of time for someone with your salary to find an apartment. We expect you to be reasonable about this. In that moment, something broke inside me. Years of feeling secondary to Patrick, of contributing financially, while being treated as less important, culminated in the stark reality that my own family did not see me as an equal member. The home I had helped maintain, the family fund I had faithfully contributed to, the future security I thought I was building, all of it was an illusion. I stood up, leaving the unopened champagne on the table. I understand perfectly now. Thank you for making it so clear where I stand in this family. I walked out of the kitchen, went to my room, and closed the door. There was no birthday dinner that night, no cake, no celebration of my promotion. Instead, I spent the evening looking at apartment listings on my laptop, tears streaming down my face, as I confronted the reality that the family I had been so loyal to did not return that loyalty. The next morning, I left early for work before anyone else was awake. When I returned that evening, I found a listing of available apartments printed out and left on my bed. The message couldn't have been clearer. My time in the Morgan family home was over, and no one was particularly concerned about how I felt about it. The first few weeks after being told to leave my family home were a blur of stress, anxiety, and frantic apartment hunting. With Chicago's competitive rental market and the short notice I had been given, finding an affordable place proved nearly impossible. Security deposits first and last month's rent and application fees quickly drained the savings I had worked so hard to build. My friend Amanda came to my rescue when I explained my situation. "You can stay with me until you find something," she insisted, opening her small one-bedroom apartment to me. "The couch pulls out into a bed, and it's yours for as long as you need it." I accepted her offer with immense gratitude, moving my essential belongings to her place, while putting the rest in a small storage unit. The day I moved out of my family home was telling in its lack of emotion from my parents and brother. My father was at work. My mother helped carry exactly 2 boxes to my car, before claiming she had errands to run, and Patrick was nowhere to be seen. "Text us your new address when you get settled," was all my mother said before disappearing inside, leaving me to finish loading my car alone. Living on Amanda's pull-out couch was humbling. At 29 years old, with a senior position at a respected marketing firm, I found myself essentially homeless, displaced by the very people who should have supported me most. The apartment hunt continued to be discouraging, with every affordable option either being snapped up before I could view it, or having serious issues that made it unlivable. "What about your family fund?" Amanda asked one evening as we scrolled through rental listings. "Can't you ask for your portion back to help with the deposit on a better place?" I shook my head, the pain still fresh. "They've made it clear that none of that money is considered mine. According to them, I was just paying rent all this time." Meanwhile, my texts and calls to my family went largely unanswered. When my mother did respond, it was with perfunctory messages asking if I had found a place yet, or suggesting I look in neighborhoods far from my work. Not once did anyone in my family ask how I was coping or offer any form of support. Through a colleague at work, I finally found a tiny studio apartment available for immediate move-in. The rent was steep for the small space, the appliances were outdated, and the location added 20 minutes to my commute. But I was desperate for my own space again. I signed the lease and scraped together the required security deposit by maxing out my credit card. The day I got my keys, I sent a group text to my family with my new address. Patrick was the only one who responded with a brief, "Good luck with the move." My parents' silence spoke volumes. As I settled into my new cramped living situation, I made a decision that would change the trajectory of my financial future. I would no longer contribute to the Morgan Family Fund. The 30% of my income that had previously gone to my parents would now go toward building my own security and future. This decision gave me a sense of control in a situation where I had felt powerless. With each paycheck, I allocated funds to paying down the credit card debt I had accumulated during the move, building an emergency fund, and starting a dedicated savings account for eventually purchasing my own home. I threw myself into my new role at work, taking on additional responsibilities and volunteering for projects that would increase my visibility with upper management. Working late became routine, partly out of professional ambition, but also because my tiny apartment felt lonely and unfamiliar compared to the family home I had known for most of my life. During this time, I received only occasional updates about my family. Through social media, I learned that Patrick's girlfriend Jessica had indeed moved into the house, and that my former bedroom had been converted into an office space for my brother's new business venture, some kind of financial consulting service that my father was helping him establish. The pain of being so easily replaced and forgotten by my family was profound. Holidays approached, and the perfunctory invitation to Thanksgiving dinner felt like an afterthought. "We're eating at 4. Let us know if you'll be joining us." My mother texted 3 days before the holiday. I declined, choosing instead to accept an invitation from Amanda and her family. Sitting around their table, feeling genuinely welcomed and appreciated, highlighted just how conditional my own family's love had been. As the months passed, I gradually built a new support network. My neighbor Eleanor, a retired teacher in her 70s, became an unexpected friend and mentor. We began having weekly coffee dates where she shared wisdom from her own life experiences. "Family is who treats you like family," she told me one afternoon. "Sometimes the people who share your blood aren't the ones who truly have your back." I also joined a women's financial independence group that met monthly at a local community center. There, I learned valuable skills about investing, retirement planning, and building wealth that my father had never bothered to teach me despite his profession. Through a work connection, I was introduced to Michael, a former marketing executive who had started his own consulting business. He became a mentor to me professionally, offering guidance and opportunities that accelerated my career growth. You have natural talent and drive, he told me after I successfully led a major campaign. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're not worthy of success. These new relationships helped fill the void left by my family's betrayal. While the sting of being cast aside never fully disappeared, I began to recognize that I deserved better treatment than what I had received from the Morgans. As my first year of independence progressed, I maintained minimal contact with my family. Occasional text messages and brief phone calls with my mother constituted the extent of our communication. I learned that Patrick's business venture was struggling to find clients, but my parents continued to support him financially and emotionally in ways they had never supported me. My tiny apartment, though far from ideal, became a symbol of my resilience. I decorated it with care, making the small space as comfortable and functional as possible. Each rent payment, while painfully large relative to the space, reminded me that I was building a life on my own terms without family strings attached. By the time my studio apartment lease approached renewal, I had paid off my credit card debt, built a substantial emergency fund, and was ready to consider my next steps. The rent increase proposed by my landlord made the decision easier. It was time to look for something better, and possibly even consider buying a place of my own. Little did I know that the seeds I had planted during this difficult year would soon blossom into opportunities I couldn't have imagined on that painful birthday, when my family showed me exactly where I stood in their priorities. Exactly 18 months after being forced out of my family home, my career took a dramatic turn for the better. The marketing campaigns I had spearheaded for several key clients had generated impressive results, catching the attention of our agency's executive team. In a meeting that I had assumed would be a routine quarterly review, I was offered the position of Director of Digital Marketing Strategy. Your innovative approaches and leadership qualities have not gone unnoticed, the CEO told me as he outlined the promotion. We believe you're ready to take on more responsibility and help shape the direction of our entire digital department. The salary increase that came with this promotion was substantial, nearly doubling what I had been making as a senior marketing manager. After signing the paperwork and accepting congratulations from colleagues, I sat in my car in the parking garage and allowed myself a moment to fully process what this meant for my future. Financial security, which had seemed so elusive after being displaced from my family home, was now within reach. More importantly, this accomplishment was entirely my own achieved without any assistance from the family that had always favored my brother's endeavors over mine. With my improved financial situation, I began to seriously consider homeownership. The real estate market in Chicago was expensive, but with my new salary and the savings I had diligently accumulated, a modest home in one of the outlying neighborhoods seemed achievable. I connected with a realtor, recommended by Eleanor, my elderly neighbor, who had become a trusted friend and advisor. I'm looking for something small, but with room to grow, I explained during our first meeting. Maybe a 2-bedroom that could give me office space for remote work. Susan, the realtor, listened carefully to my needs and budget constraints. The market is competitive right now, but there are still good options for someone in your position. Let's start looking and see what feels right. Over the next few months, I viewed dozens of properties. Some were well beyond my budget, others needed more renovation work than I was prepared to take on, and many were simply snapped up by other buyers before I could even submit an offer. The process was discouraging at times, but I remained determined. This would be the first major asset I owned, a tangible representation of my independence and resilience after my family's betrayal. Then on a rainy Sunday afternoon, Susan called with excitement in her voice. I just got word about a property that's about to be listed tomorrow. The owners are relocating for work and need to sell quickly. It might be perfect for you. And if we see it today, we could get an offer in before it officially hits the market. The house was a small 2-story Victorian in a charming neighborhood with tree-lined streets. It needed some cosmetic updates, but the structure was sound, and the previous owners had already replaced the roof and HVAC system. The moment I walked through the front door, I felt a sense of belonging that I hadn't experienced since being forced out of my family home. It has character, Susan noted as we toured the space. Two bedrooms upstairs, a good-sized living room and kitchen on the main floor, and the bonus room off the kitchen could be perfect for your home office. What sold me completely was the small fenced backyard with a mature maple tree and enough space for a garden. Standing under that tree, I could envision summer evenings spent reading outside, maybe even hosting small gatherings with the new friends I had made. "I want to make an offer," I told Susan decisively. "This feels right." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork inspections, mortgage applications, and negotiations. The sellers accepted my offer, which was slightly below asking price, but included a quick closing timeline that suited their needs. My excellent credit score, despite the brief period of high credit card utilization during my emergency move, helped secure a favorable mortgage rate. When I called my mother to share the news that I was buying a house, her response was lukewarm at best. "Are you sure that's a wise investment right now?" she asked. "The market might be peaking." "I've done my research, Mom," I replied, trying to hide my disappointment at her lack of enthusiasm. "And I'm working with experienced professionals who think this is a solid purchase." "Well, I hope you know what you're doing," she said, before changing the subject to Patrick's latest business idea, which apparently involved some kind of cryptocurrency investment scheme that my father was helping him develop. Despite my family's lack of support, the day I signed the final paperwork and received the keys to my new home was one of the proudest moments of my life. I stood in the empty living room, keys in hand, overwhelmed by the realization that this space was truly mine. No one could ask me to leave on a whim. No one could claim that my financial contributions were merely rent. I had achieved this entirely on my own. Amanda Eleanor and several colleagues helped me move in and celebrated with an impromptu housewarming party, complete with pizza wine and a home sweet home plant that Eleanor brought as a gift. "To new beginnings and creating your own legacy," Amanda toasted, raising her plastic cup of wine. Over the next several months, I gradually made the house my own. I painted the walls in colors I loved, replaced the outdated kitchen countertops, and converted the bonus room into a functional home office where I could work remotely when needed. Each improvement, no matter how small, filled me with satisfaction and pride. As I settled into my role as a homeowner, I continued to excel professionally. My department consistently exceeded targets, and I was building a reputation as an innovative leader in digital marketing strategies. The financial security that came with my success allowed me to not only maintain my home, but also start building a diverse investment portfolio with guidance from my women's financial group. My contact with my family remained minimal during this period. Occasional text messages with my mother, a brief call on Christmas, and updates about family matters through social media constituted the extent of our relationship. I had accepted that they had made their choice nearly 3 years earlier, when they prioritized Patrick's needs over my security and well-being. What I didn't realize was that circumstances within the Morgan household were changing in ways that would soon impact my carefully constructed new life. The family that had so easily discarded me was about to reappear, bringing with them demands that would test my boundaries and resolve in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Almost 3 years after being told to leave on my birthday, I received an unexpected text from my mother. "We haven't had a family dinner in ages. Would you be able to come over this Sunday at 6?" The invitation caught me off guard. In the years since I had moved out, family gatherings had been limited to major holidays, and even those were strained affairs that I sometimes opted to skip in favor of celebrating with friends who genuinely valued my company. After considerable thought, I decided to accept the invitation. Perhaps time had given my family some perspective on how they had treated me. Maybe this was an opportunity for healing, or at least for establishing a more adult relationship based on mutual respect, rather than the one-sided expectations that had characterized our previous dynamics. When I arrived at my childhood home that Sunday evening, I was immediately struck by how little had changed. The same furniture, the same family photos on the walls. Even the same slight scent of my mother's favorite candles. It was as if I had stepped into a time capsule from before my abrupt departure. Sarah, you look wonderful. My mother greeted me with a hug that felt unusually warm. Come in, dinner is almost ready. In the dining room, my father stood to greet me with an awkward half hug. Good to see you, kiddo. You're looking well. Patrick was already seated at the table scrolling through his phone. He looked up briefly when I entered, offering a nod that fell somewhere between acknowledgement and disinterest. I noticed immediately that Jessica was nowhere to be seen. Is Jessica joining us? I asked as I took my seat. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table before Patrick shrugged. We broke up about 8 months ago. It didn't work out. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, though I wasn't particularly surprised. The glimpses I had caught of their relationship through social media had suggested it was built more on convenience and shared materialistic values than genuine connection. My mother busied herself serving the food a pot roast with all the traditional sides that had been a family favorite. The conversation during the first part of the meal remained superficial, focusing on safe topics like the unseasonably warm weather and an upcoming renovation on the neighborhood park. It wasn't until dessert was served that the atmosphere shifted. My father cleared his throat and set down his fork with deliberate care. Sarah, we've been keeping up with your career through social media, he began. Sounds like you're doing very well for yourself these days. I am, I confirmed. The director position has been challenging but rewarding. My team is excellent, and we've been exceeding our targets consistently. And we understand you bought a house. My mother interjected, her tone casual, but her eyes alert with interest. Yes, about a year and a half ago. It's a small Victorian in Ravenswood. 2 bedrooms, nice yard. I've been fixing it up gradually. Patrick leaned forward. Ravenswood is a good area. Property values have been climbing there steadily. Smart investment. The conversation continued along these lines, with unusually detailed questions about my home, my mortgage terms, and the improvements I had made to the property. While it seemed odd that my family was suddenly so interested in my real estate decisions, I answered honestly, even showing them a few photos of my house on my phone. You've done well for yourself, my father said with an approving nod that I had rarely received from him in the past. It's good to see you taking initiative with property ownership. As my mother brought coffee to the table, the real purpose of the evening began to emerge. My father folded his hands in front of him, adopting the posture he always used when discussing serious financial matters. Sarah, we've been doing some thinking about the future of the Morgan family, he began. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger, and we're starting to consider our retirement options more seriously. That makes sense, I replied cautiously, sensing there was more to this conversation than simple retirement planning. The thing is, my mother continued, the economic situation hasn't been as stable as we'd hoped. Our investments haven't performed as expected, and the real estate market has been volatile. I nodded, waiting for them to get to the point. Patrick has also had some setbacks with his business ventures, my father added, glancing at my brother, who suddenly seemed very interested in stirring his coffee. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, genuinely meaning it despite our strained relationship. What kind of setbacks? Patrick shrugged, not meeting my eyes. Market timing issues mostly, some clients who didn't pay. The usual startup challenges. My father cleared his throat again. The point is, Sarah, we've been thinking about how to maximize the family's resources during these uncertain times, and we've come up with an idea that could benefit all of us. Something in his tone sent a warning signal through my mind. I set down my coffee cup and waited. We know you've done well with your house purchase, my mother said brightly. And we thought perhaps we could explore a family investment partnership centered around your property. I blinked, not sure I had heard correctly. A family investment partnership. With my house, my father nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. We could pool some resources for upgrades that would increase the property value. Patrick has been studying real estate investment strategies and has some excellent ideas for maximizing return on investment. The house is already in great shape, I said slowly. I've been making improvements gradually as I can afford them. But imagine what could be done with a more substantial investment, Patrick interjected. Kitchen renovations, bathroom upgrades, maybe finishing the basement if there is one. These improvements could significantly increase the property's value. And in exchange for this investment, my father continued, we would establish a family trust that would include your house as a shared asset. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. You want partial ownership of my house? I asked incredulously. Not ownership exactly, my mother said quickly. Just recognition that the Morgan family has a vested interest in the property. We would contribute to improvements, and in return, the house would be considered part of the family portfolio. Patrick has been looking for a place to stay temporarily while he reestablishes his business, my father added. The second bedroom in your house would be perfect for him. He could oversee the renovation work we're proposing. I sat back in my chair, momentarily speechless. The audacity of their proposal was stunning. After kicking me out of the family home on my birthday, after years of minimal contact and support, they were now suggesting that my house, which I had purchased entirely with my own money and hard work, should somehow become a family asset, with Patrick as a tenant. Let me make sure I understand, I said finally, working to keep my voice steady. You want to invest money in renovations to my house, make it part of a family trust, and have Patrick move in. Is that correct? My father nodded, seemingly oblivious to my growing anger. Exactly. It's a win-win situation. Your property value increases. Patrick gets a stable living situation, while he regroups and the family maintains a solid real estate investment during uncertain economic times. And what happened to the family home? I asked, gesturing around us. Isn't this still the primary family asset? Another uncomfortable silence fell over the table. My mother busied herself collecting dessert plates while my father and Patrick exchanged glances. There have been some changes in our financial situation, my father finally admitted. We had to refinance the house last year to cover some unexpected expenses and investments. What kind of investments? I pressed. Patrick shifted in his seat. I needed capital for a business opportunity that didn't quite pan out as expected. So you refinanced the family home to fund Patrick's failed business venture, I summarized. And now you're looking for another property to leverage, and mine is the target. You're making it sound much more calculating than it is, my mother protested. We're simply trying to find solutions that benefit everyone in the family. The same family that told me I was just paying rent all those years I contributed to the household. The same family that gave me 30 days to leave on my birthday. The bitterness I thought I had moved past came rushing back. And now you think I should welcome Patrick into my home and sign over partial rights to the property I purchased entirely on my own? No one is asking you to sign over rights? My father said, his tone growing defensive. We're talking about a family investment trust. It's a common financial arrangement. I need some time to think about this, I said, standing up from the table. The proposal was so outrageous that I couldn't trust myself to respond further without saying things I might regret. Of course, my mother said quickly. It's a big decision. Take all the time you need. We just wanted to start the conversation. As I drove home that night, my mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. After 3 years of minimal contact, my family had re-entered my life not to rebuild our relationship, but to lay claim to the security I had built for myself. The same people who had cast me aside when it suited them now saw my success as something they were entitled to share in. I spent the next week consulting with Amanda, who is now in law school, and with financial advisors I trusted. Everyone confirmed what I already knew instinctively. The proposal my family had made was one-sided and potentially predatory. They have no legal claim to your property, Amanda assured me after reviewing my mortgage documents and deed. But be careful about allowing Patrick to stay with you, even temporarily. Tenant rights can get complicated. Armed with this knowledge and with a clearer understanding of my family's true motives, I made the decision to confront them directly, rather than letting the situation fester. I invited them to my home, not just to give them a firm answer about their proposal, but also to establish clear boundaries for our future relationship. A week after the uncomfortable family dinner, I welcomed my parents and Patrick into my home for the first time. Watching them examine my living room with assessing eyes, I was struck by the stark contrast between their interest in the property's value versus any pride in what I had accomplished. This is quite charming, my mother remarked, running her hand along the newly refinished mantel of the original fireplace. The woodwork has real character. How much did you pay for the place? Patrick asked bluntly, peering around as if conducting an appraisal. I provided a brief tour showing them the renovated kitchen with its new countertops, the comfortable living room where I enjoyed reading in the evenings, and the sunlit home office where I sometimes worked remotely. I deliberately did not show them the upstairs bedrooms, a subtle signal that I wasn't considering Patrick's temporary residence in my home. After the tour, I served coffee in the living room and prepared to address the reason for this gathering. I had spent days researching consulting with professionals and rehearsing what I wanted to say. Now sitting across from my family in the home I had created for myself, I felt a surprising calm. I've given a lot of thought to your proposal. I began meeting each of their gazes in turn. Before I give you my answer, I'd like to understand the full context of what's happening with our family finances. My father shifted uncomfortably. As we mentioned, there have been some investment challenges. Nothing to worry about long term. I think I need more specific information than that if you're asking me to enter into a financial arrangement with you, I countered. After an awkward silence, the truth began to emerge in fragments. Patrick had convinced my father to invest a significant portion of their retirement savings in his cryptocurrency venture, which had failed spectacularly. Additionally, he had sold his portion of the expected inheritance in the family home to cover personal debts using a legal mechanism my father had helped arrange. My mother, looking increasingly distressed, finally admitted that they had been struggling to make the refinanced mortgage payments on the family home. Property taxes have increased substantially too, she added. It's becoming difficult to maintain. So let me summarize what I'm hearing, I said once they had finished. Patrick's business ventures have failed repeatedly. He sold his stake in the family home. You refinanced to cover his debts and investments. Now you're struggling financially and you see my home as a potential solution to these problems. That's putting it rather harshly, my father objected. But is it inaccurate? I challenged. The silence that followed was confirmation enough. I took a deep breath. I have documents I'd like to share with you. I distributed copies of the research I had compiled, including a professional appraisal of my home legal information about property rights and a detailed accounting of my mortgage and ownership status. My home is legally mine alone, I stated firmly. I purchased it with my own money without any contribution from the family fund or any other family resources. According to my financial advisors, your proposal would put me at significant financial risk while primarily benefiting you. Patrick's face darkened. So, you're refusing to help your family when we need it? After all we did for you growing up. What exactly did you do for me, Patrick? I asked, maintaining my composure. When I was contributing to the family fund for years, you were the primary beneficiary. When I needed a place to live, you were the reason I was forced out. Now that I've built something for myself, you want to claim a portion of it. That's not fair, my mother interjected. We supported you throughout your childhood and education. Did you? Because I remember taking out substantial student loans while Patrick's education was largely funded by you. I remember working since I was 16 to pay for my own expenses. I remember being told that my contributions to the household were just rent, when it suited you to see it that way. I turned to look directly at my father. I've also learned something interesting during my research. The family fund that I contributed to for years, the one I was told was for our collective benefit. I requested records from the bank where it was held. My father's face paled slightly. Would you like to know what I discovered? The account was never in all our names, as you claimed. It was solely in your name and Mom's. And most of the withdrawals over the years went toward Patrick's expenses and investments, not shared family costs, as I was led to believe. That's a gross mischaracterization, my father sputtered. Is it because I have the records right here? I placed another document on the coffee table. Nearly 70% of withdrawals are directly linked to expenses for Patrick or his ventures. Less than 5% went toward anything that benefited me directly. Patrick stood up suddenly. This is ridiculous. We came here to discuss a business proposition, not to be attacked. It's not a business proposition, I corrected him. It's an attempt to capitalize on my success after you squandered your own opportunities. And my answer is no. I will not add my home to any family trust. I will not allow Patrick to move in. And I will not participate in any renovation schemes designed to give you equity in my property. My mother began to cry, a response I had seen her deploy many times when confrontations didn't go her way. I can't believe you've become so cold, Sarah. Family is supposed to support each other. Yes, family is supposed to support each other. I agreed. But that support should be mutual and respectful, not exploitative. Where was this concern for family support when you gave me 30 days to leave on my birthday? My father stood his expression hardening. If that's your position, we have nothing more to discuss. Come on, Diane Patrick, we're leaving. As they gathered their things, Patrick turned to me with an unexpected threat. You might want to reconsider your position. As a blood relative, I could have grounds to claim partial inheritance rights to any family assets, including this house. Our family has always operated as a financial unit. Actually, you can't, I replied calmly. I've already consulted with legal experts on this exact question. My home was purchased entirely with my own funds with no contribution from family money. There are no inheritance claims possible on a property purchased independently by an adult child with no parental contribution. The look of surprise on his face confirmed what I had suspected. He had been bluffing, hoping to intimidate me into compliance. As I showed them to the door, my mother made one last emotional appeal. Sarah, please reconsider. We're still your family, despite our differences. I looked at her sadly. Yes, you are my family biologically, but you stopped acting like family a long time ago. I've learned that family is defined by how people treat each other, not just by shared DNA. After they left, I sat in my living room in the home I had created for myself and felt an unexpected sense of peace. The confrontation had been difficult but necessary. I had finally stood up for myself and established clear boundaries with the people who had hurt me most deeply. Their attempt to claim a stake in my hard-earned security had failed, but the experience had taught me something valuable about the true meaning of family and the importance of protecting what I had built for myself. In the 6 months following the confrontation with my family, I experienced a roller coaster of emotions. The initial sense of empowerment from standing my ground gradually gave way to renewed grief over what our relationship could have been versus what it had become. Though I had known for years that my position in the family hierarchy was secondary to Patrick's, facing the extent of their willingness to exploit my success was still painful. After a particularly difficult week, where I found myself dwelling on the past, I decided to seek professional help. Dr. Winters, a therapist specializing in family dynamics, provided a safe space for me to process my experiences. What you're describing is a common pattern in families with narcissistic tendencies, she explained during one of our early sessions. The family operated as a system where your brother was the golden child, and you were expected to play a supporting role providing resources without receiving equal benefits or recognition. These insights helped me understand that the dysfunction wasn't my fault, and that my anger and hurt were natural responses to genuine mistreatment. More importantly, therapy gave me tools to move forward without letting resentment consume me. Establishing boundaries doesn't mean you don't love your family, Dr. Winters assured me. It means you love yourself enough to protect your well-being. In addition to individual therapy, I joined a support group for adults dealing with difficult family relationships. Hearing others share similar experiences reduced my sense of isolation and provided practical strategies for managing limited contact with toxic family members. Margaret, another group member who had gone through a similar experience with her siblings, became a valuable friend outside the sessions. The hardest part, she confided during one of our coffee meetings, is giving up the hope that they'll suddenly become the family you deserve to have. Once you accept who they actually are, not who you wish they were, you can build a life that doesn't depend on their approval. About 4 months after our confrontation, I received an unexpected text message from my mother. Can we meet for coffee? Just the two of us. After discussing it with Dr. Winters, I agreed to a brief meeting at a neutral coffee shop. My mother arrived looking noticeably older and more subdued than when I had last seen her. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began after we had settled with our drinks. "The way we treated you, especially when we asked you to move out, wasn't right." Her acknowledgement, though limited, was more than I had expected. As our conversation continued, she revealed that she and my father had been attending marriage counseling after a rough patch triggered by their financial problems. The counselor helped me see some patterns in our family that I hadn't recognized before, she admitted. "I didn't realize how differently we treated you and Patrick until it was pointed out by someone else." While her apology wasn't complete, and she didn't fully acknowledge the depth of the hurt they had caused, it was a start. We agreed to maintain limited contact, beginning with occasional text messages, and perhaps working up to monthly coffee meetings. My father proved less willing to examine his role in our family dynamics. When I encountered him at a neighborhood grocery store by chance, his greeting was stiff and formal. "Your mother says you two have been talking again. That's good, I suppose." When I asked if he had reconsidered his position on our last conversation, he shook his head. "I still think you're being unreasonable about the family trust idea, but I guess that's your prerogative." His inability to acknowledge any wrongdoing confirmed that my boundaries needed to remain firmly in place where he was concerned. Patrick's response to the failed attempt to claim a stake in my home took a more alarming turn. After making vague legal threats via text message for several weeks, he apparently consulted an actual attorney who informed him that he had no claim whatsoever on my independently purchased property. Rather than accepting this reality, he posted a series of thinly veiled criticisms on social media, referring to ungrateful family members who forget where they came from and selfish behavior disguised as independence. I responded by simply blocking him on all platforms. A few months later, I heard through my mother that Patrick had moved to Denver to pursue yet another business opportunity. The distance made it easier to maintain the separation that I now recognized was necessary for my well-being. As I worked through these family challenges, my professional life continued to flourish. My digital marketing department exceeded all quarterly targets, resulting in a substantial performance bonus that I used to install a new fence around my backyard and create the garden space I had envisioned when first purchasing the house. My social circle expanded as well. Through a community volunteering project, I met Daniel, an architect with a kind smile and thoughtful nature. Our friendship gradually evolved into something deeper, built on mutual respect and shared values about family finances and the future. Unlike previous relationships where I had downplayed my family issues, I was open with Daniel about my experiences. His supportive response, free from judgment or pressure to reconcile, confirmed that I had found someone who respected my boundaries. "Family is complicated for everyone," he told me after I shared the full story. "What matters is that you've built a good life despite the challenges. That takes incredible strength." By the time my 32nd birthday approached, I had created a life filled with meaningful work, genuine friendships, a loving relationship, and a home that was truly my sanctuary. The contrast with my 29th birthday, when I had been unceremoniously told to leave my family home, couldn't have been more striking. I decided to reclaim this date that had been tainted by painful memories by hosting a small gathering at my house. Amanda, Ellen, her colleagues who had become friends, members of my financial support group, and Daniel helped transform my backyard into a festive space with string lights, comfortable seating, and a table laden with food. To my surprise, my mother asked if she could attend. After some consideration, I invited her, making it clear that this was my celebration with the people who had supported me through difficult times. She arrived with a small gift and observed the warm interactions among my chosen family with a thoughtful expression. "You've built something beautiful here, Sarah," she said quietly as she prepared to leave. "Not just the house, but these relationships. I'm sorry we didn't see your value clearly before." As I blew out the candles on my 32nd birthday, surrounded by people who truly loved me for who I am, I realized that sometimes losing what you thought was yours is the only way to find what truly belongs to you. The home I built wasn't just made of bricks and mortar. It was built with boundaries, self-respect, and the courage to write my own definition of family. If you've ever had to stand up to family members who tried to take advantage of your success, let me know in the comments below. Has anyone else experienced family trying to claim ownership of something you worked hard for? Hit the like button. If you believe in establishing healthy boundaries, even with family, subscribe for more stories about overcoming family betrayal and building a life on your own terms. Thank you all for watching. And remember that sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into.